Chelsea's transfer window admittedly has got off to a pretty slow start, with thus far only a few academy players being released and the sale of Marc Cucurella to Real Madrid for £50 million. And whilst we are starting to be linked with players, we're not seeing anything particularly concrete yet. And the thing that I find most irritating about that is I'm desperate to find out how our team is going to look. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And today we're going to take a little look at a potential tactic and various permutations of how that tactic might look. The frustrating thing for me about not having signed any players yet is not even necessarily about not bringing any players in, but I just really want to know, how are we going to play? There's been so many fantastic conversations in my comment section across the last month or so of videos I've been putting out, and a large part of that debate, which I facilitated myself as well, seems to be, are we going to play 4 at the back or 3 at the back? Xabi Alonso's double winning Bayer Leverkusen, that invincible season, was created by a very, very strong, solid 3 at the back formation. A deep line distributor in midfield, absolutely unbelievable goal scoring and assisting wing backs, supplemented by incredible creative number 10s playing behind the striker. But at Real Madrid, he did largely seem to favour 4 at the back, but it's difficult really to... Although we did quite well at Real Madrid, it's difficult to analyse if that is exactly how things would have played out, just by the nature of how things went there. So the debate's been raging on. Is it 3 at the back? Do we go in for wing backs? Is it going to be 4 at the back and we actually want ourselves a left winger? But after all this time, it suddenly dawned on me, actually, is it both at the same time? So the 4-2-3-1 is ostensibly the formation that our team has been set up for. It's just how we've been playing for a really, really long time. And different managers have used different permutations of that formation. Maresca in particular was very, very interested in inverting a fullback into the midfield to create a box midfield, but ultimately his football kind of got a bit stodgy and kind of got a bit boring, because what would often happen, it would just get out to the wingers, they'd pass it back, it'd be recycled around the centre backs, and we'd go all over again. But that also got me to thinking, hold on, Pochettino actually introduced Marc Cucurella as an inverting fullback, and that was the first time we sort of did that, and we weren't playing that possession-based football at all. But what it did allow us to do was overload that midfield with the box. So the more I think about it, the more it actually makes sense. Like, a lot of you guys in the comments have been saying our team is set up for a 4-2-3-1, so that's probably how we're going to play. But obviously Xabi Alonso likes to attack with kind of a box midfield and wing backs as well. We've literally seen how, starting from that 4-2-3-1 formation, how that can be possible. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at a 4-2-3-1 and 4 different attacking permutations that the team could look like depending on different structures. So let's have a little look. This is the 4-2-3-1. Now, a couple of things to mention. I've chosen a starting 11 that isn't going to change throughout any of these permutations of how this team could look in attack. And I've added 1 player to the mix. Only 1 new player come in. At the moment, it's Maxence Lacroix at centre-back. And the reason I've done that is because really the centre-back position is the only position that we have an idea of what the profile we're looking for is, right? Because when it comes to the midfield, we're not sure what sort of midfielder we're going to want if we sell Enzo Fernandez. When it comes to the left-back, we're not sure if we want a wing back or a left back or whatever. When it comes to the attackers, we're not sure if we're looking for an inside 10 type or a more classic kind of winger who plays wide and attacks out wide. So that's why I've only added in Maxence Lacroix, and I've taken some of our strongest players from our team that already exist and brought in a couple of the new guys that we've got pre-contract agreements with. So if we were to start out in a 4-2-3-1, I've gone for Mike Penders in goal, Yoro Hato at left back, Levi Colwill and Maxence Lacroix at centre back, Reece James at right back, a midfield of Moises Caicedo and Valentin Barco, an attacking 3 of Cole Palmer in the middle, Esteval Willian on the right, and Giovanni Quenda on the left, and of course João Pedro up top. So this in itself, without even doing anything particularly crazy in the attacking phase, actually looks pretty good to me. So Reece James, I don't see him being that bombing up and down wing back that he used to be, but we know from a right back he can still perform really well, unbelievable crosser and a playmaker from anywhere on the pitch. Yoro Hato was phenomenal at left back for Ajax before we brought him in, and he's played really well for us at left centre back, but we know he's a good defensive option. A partnership of Levi Colwill and Maxence Lacroix to me just looks good any way you shake it. Moises Caicedo obviously retains that spot in midfield, being the aggressor, the ball winner. Valentin Barco, albeit a lot of us are talking about him being a left back, has played central midfield for Strasbourg for pretty much the last 18 months. Cole Palmer back in his favourite position in the centre of attack. Esteval Willian out on the right, who can then drift inside and take his man on. Giovanni Quenda on the left, and even though he's left-footed as well, he's actually a fantastic creator and a really good crosser. And João Pedro up top, who can drop deep, he can switch roles with Cole Palmer, and obviously he's really really good for a goal. So even before we've moved on to any how could this look in attack, even if we did go old school, started in this formation, played in this formation, it doesn't look terrible, does it? But let's move on to the 4 permutations about how we could look in the attacking phase if we start with this as our basic defensive phase formation. So the first one I've gone for is a 3-2-4-1. So I am incorporating the back 3 into all of these other formations in the attacking phase, because albeit that was how Xabi Alonso's team started lining up in Bayer Leverkusen, ultimately they attacked in this formation as well. We've seen it before. We saw it with Mauricio Pochettino when we went on that winning run at the end of the season when Marco Correa was inverted into midfield, and obviously we saw it a lot with Enzo Maresca as well. So a 3-2-4-1 in this formation for me could look like Mike Penders in goal, Levi Colwill moving into that favoured central centre-back position where he can dictate play and put in line-splitting passes, Maxence Lacroix and Yoro Hato. Maxence Lacroix drifting into the right centre-back spot and Yoro Hato tucking in to become the left centre-back. Instantly this makes sense because a lot of us are talking about what a great defender Yoro Hato is. He's an excellent passer and he's played this position really well towards the back end of the season despite our season kind of tailing off. So in this respect then you get Reece James inverting into midfield, and again that makes sense because he's played really well in midfield for us this season. He's an absolutely phenomenal passer and we know that Xabi Alonso likes a deep lying distributor. So for me totally makes sense there. Moises Caicedo drifts over to that left spot but will still be basically doing the same role in terms of being the destroyer, the ball winner, but also can definitely thread a pass from there as well. And what that does is pushes Valentin Barco up to create a box midfield alongside Cole Palmer. Now, Valentin Barco recently has proved, not only at Strasbourg, but also with Argentina, at least in the pre-World Cup friendly against Finland, that he's an excellent creative player, right? Now, a lot of you guys are not sure about the height situation, but that's a bit less of an issue if you're pushing him further forward. Essentially, this is a very similar kind of position to what Enzo Fernandez played, but I wouldn't expect him as much to be trying to bomb forward and get goals. He would be able to facilitate play from an advanced space in the pitch to get the ball to Cole Palmer, João Pedro, and the wide players in Giovanni Quenda and Esteval Willian. So in this respect, I would expect Giovanni Quenda and Esteval Willian to act very similar to how Xabi Alonso's wingbacks played in the Bayer Leverkusen system when they were really massively attacking players. Giovanni Quenda has got buckets of energy and is a really good crosser and a creator, so he could be bombing up and down that left side like a wingback, or he could be trying to get the ball into João Pedro. There's loads of things that he can do from there. Esteval Willian over there as well also has the freedom to interchange, play little 1-2s with Cole Palmer. They can swap around. There's, you know, a lot of creative freedom in that spot for both of them as well. And then you've got João Pedro up top who can drop deep, can facilitate, can be a proper number 9 as well. So already to me this kind of makes sense. Like I say, if we start with that back 4 in defence, so we've got more defenders there, but we transition into this back 3 and push, you know, the wingers up to be kind of like how Xabi Alonso liked to play his wingers in that Bayer Leverkusen season where they got loads and loads and loads of goals and assists. I like it, and it's weird that it's just like, it really dawned on me, and a couple of you guys have mentioned something like this in my comments recently, but I guess the reason I didn't initially think about this is because I just kind of stuck it to Enzo Maresca, where what happened in this formation is the ball gets out to the wingers never beat their man, they pass it back down to the midfield or the centre-backs and it just gets recycled again and again. But I expect Xabi Alonso to be a lot more attacking than that. So that's the first permutation out of the way, and let's look at another one. So this one I've set up as a 3-4-2-1. So the back 3 looks different, the midfield looks a little bit different, and the attack looks a little bit different as well. So the back 3, we've now got Levi Colwill drifting onto the left side, Maxence Lacroix staying in the middle, and Reece James dropping into the right centre-back spot. We've got a midfield 2 with Yoro Hato pushing up into the midfield, which we have seen him do a little bit before, and obviously Moises Caicedo. And then we've got left and right, more classic style wing-backs with Valentin Barco and Giovanni Quenda. 2 number 10s behind the striker in Cole Palmer and Esteval Willian, with João Pedro again up top. So the thing I like about this is, although normally what we're used to seeing, especially in Enzo Maresca's formation, was Levi Colwill being that guy in the middle, right? And obviously what I've done here is I've gone for something a little bit different. Maxence Lacroix is arguably the best defender out of the 3 of these at the moment. He's the most astute and he's be the most ready to take on players that come towards goal. But what you've got in Levi Colwill and Reece James being either side of him is absolutely unbelievable facilitators and great passers. Long balls could be a thing, and they can also be getting the ball quite easily out to the wing backs who can get really far up and then try and get it into our attacking players. I expect to see a little bit less creativity from this midfield, but Yoro Hato is obviously a great defensive player, as well as having an unbelievable passing accuracy, which has been in and around 90% for the last 3 seasons in a row. The 2 number 10s behind the striker in Cole Palmer and Esteval Willian just speak for itself. We know that Esteval Willian is really versatile. We know that albeit he's left-footed, he can play on this side. We know Cole Palmer can play on this side as well, and there can be a lot of chopping and changing that can be done there. And again, I don't really need to keep talking about it because it's basically the same for every reason, but then you've got João Pedro up top as well. So the last formation, for instance, probably would be really good if we we were going at a team that was going to sit back. But this one is maybe set up a bit more for a team that's going to come at us, right? Because we've got the three at the back, albeit Maxence Lacroix in the middle. They're all really strong defenders. We've got a very strong defense in the midfield as well. And you've got Valentin Barco and Giovanni Quenda dropping back a little bit. So if we are facing like a high press, for instance, there's lots of players to tackle that. In the attacking phase, you could also see Valentin Barco and Giovanni Quenda making high runs up the byline and able to get the ball into the middle to either of the two number 10s or João Pedro. So they're more of like what I expect to see if we did this kind of thing. And honestly, it's still a mystery. It's still an absolute mystery, isn't it? Like, we really got no idea what's going to happen. It feels like it's going to start to make more sense when we've got some players that have been brought in, and we're going to start to see, right? But the one big thing about Xabi Alonso's formation, right? I've reported on some content before from a Bundesliga journalist who watched Xabi Alonso's obviously Bayer Leverkusen season, and he was a Leverkusen focus reporter as well. And one thing that he said is, despite having his starting formation, different players would play different roles depending on the kind of game. So Xabi Alonso is known for trying to adapt to each team as it comes at him, but also is known for keeping his base principles of possession-based football, high intensity, and dynamically allowing his players to attack depending on what's going on in the game. So we're going to look at another couple of little permutations, which are, these ones are a little bit wild, and I'd love to see what you think about them, but we're just going to look at them anyway. So this one is a 3-2-3-2. So we go back to the back three of Yoro Hato, Levi Colwill, Maxence Lacroix. We have the midfield again of Moises Caicedo and Reece James, but instead of having two number 10s behind the striker, we have Valentin Barco and Giovanni Quenda playing as wingers or winger backs, however you want to see it. We keep Cole Palmer in the centre of attack, and we allow Esteval Willian to push up to kind of be more of a shadow striker to João Pedro. Now, this for me could be really interesting, and again, it's obviously with kind of two forwards that you're looking at. It could be another opportunity to use this sort of thing to go against teams that are playing in a low block. We've seen Esteval Willian play this kind of position before, albeit not from a starting kind of berth, but we have seen it where Malagusto was on and he was keeping the width, and then all of a sudden Esteval Willian starts spending a lot more time being up front, not necessarily even just like as a 10, but really trying to get towards goal, because he's really good at taking on his man. Obviously, he's got a great finish on him, and also from this position he can swap with Cole Palmer and drop into the 10 if Cole Palmer runs forward. João Pedro can do the same, and again, it says to me this could be a really fluid permutation. Also, what you've got with the likes of Valentin Barco and Giovanni Quenda being out wide, and you've got more two forwards than you have two 10s that are looking to facilitate play, then we could just be trying to get balls into the box or making cutbacks in order to get it to our attacking players. So yeah, this one's a little bit wide, but I like it anyway. I'd like to know what you think. And the last one is similar, but again, a little bit different. So I've gone for a 3-3-2-2, and again, maybe this is an attacking phase formation that we could use when the opposition team is coming at us a little bit more. It could allow us to play more transitional football with a bit of a high press and more solid defense between the centre-backs and the midfielders. So once again, back three, Yoro Hato, Levi Colwill, and Maxence Lacroix. And instead of having a player in the number 10, I've gone for a three-man midfield of Valentin Barco, Moises Caicedo, and Reece James. So the interesting thing about this kind of midfield is Valentin Barco and Reece James are obviously also both really adept at getting out wide. And with more support, Moises Caicedo could be allowed to get a little bit more forward, which could unlock a little bit of his creativity, but also allow him to press from the front, which could create space in the opposition attack. Out wide again, we've got Giovanni Quenda and Esteval Willian, with Cole Palmer drifting into the slightly more shadow strikery spot, which again, get Cole Palmer close to the goal and things can happen. This is something I really want to see from Xabi Alonso this season, is finding ways to get the best out of Cole Palmer again. And I feel like this could be one of those ways. I'm not saying that Cole Palmer is playing as a number 9 as such, but we know that he likes to get forward. We know that he likes to look for opportunity to goal, and he's a demon when he's close to goal as well. And again, with Esteval on the right, there is the opportunity for them to swap round there, because what we also know is Cole Palmer's very good on the right wing, and he's very creative from there as well to be able to get balls into the box or switch up the play to a Giovanni Quenda, who can then also potentially put the ball into a João Pedro. So it's not a two-striker formation as such, because like I say, Cole Palmer will really be playing more of a centre-forward spot there, but ultimately the thing to remember is all of these formations start with the 4-2-3-1, right? So Cole Palmer in this formation, technically it is playing in the centre of attack, but in the attacking formation could maybe try and get more forward with the likes of Valentin Barco, Moises Caicedo and Reece James covering all of that midfield behind him. So maybe, in essence, the 4-2-3-1 is the formation that we're going to go for, but it might be the trigger that allows Xabi Alonso to unlock his favoured formation in the three at the back and be able to get the profile of players that he likes and play the way that he wants to play, but instead of it just looking like a three at the back from the formations at the start. It adapts, it moves, it flows, it's fluid, it evolves. And with all of these incredibly versatile players we've already got, not to mention the few that we might bring in, this looks like it could be a really interesting option for us next season. And like I say, for me, the thing is like, I've been lost in it as well. Like I've been doing loads of content about it and I've been talking about it with you guys in the comments. I've been really stuck on this idea is like, are we going to play a back three or a back four? But the truth of the fact is, Xabi Alonso's style of football is not so much about the formation. It's about the profile of players that he's got. It's about finding the way to facilitate playing a heavy possession game, but also with the ability to press high and be able to be transitional if that's what the game requires. And to be completely honest, it seems like the 4-2-3-1 is the kind of the best formation to allow us to change our attacking phase play depending on what opponent we're playing, who we've got available to us at the time. And we do have lots of Swiss Army knife players, right? Valentin Barco is one of those. Like, these formations would have been a lot more difficult to put together if Valentin Barco wasn't such a versatile player. We know he can play from a deep midfield position. We know he can play out wide. We know he can get up and create and start attacks and score goals. The likes of Giovanni Quenda is really comfortable on either wing, which is really, really helpful as well. Reece James obviously can play right centre back, right back, or invert into the midfield, and all of which he does really well. Cole Palmer's great from deeper in the midfield or when he's getting up to make attacks happen, almost like a centre forward. And Esteval Willian can take on his man from anywhere on the pitch. So all of these kind of players connected to the kind of ones that we're going to bring in as well. Like, for instance, I know it's looking unlikely, but Morgan Rogers is another great option for a player that's really versatile. He can play in the number 10 spot. He can play in the half space number 10 if we do sort of attacking a three at the back. He can play on the left wing and drift in, which allows the likes of a Valentin Barco, for instance, to drift out wide and cover the width. If we're going to target players that kind of fit into this, if we're going to target players that can play lots of positions, it makes sense that we're going to not just have a formation. That's how we defend. That's how we attack. And it could be a lot more fluid. Pochettino unlocked this for us, right? And at the end of the day, it all came from Pep Guardiola putting John Stones into midfield and creating that box. Then all of a sudden, Enzo Maresca comes in and does a very similar thing. But like I say, for me, the issue with the way that Maresca did it is we were just never really trying. It felt like we were never really trying to attack. João Pedro suffered so much under Enzo Maresca because the ball was always being funneled out wide to the wingers. You also saw Cole Palmer get frustrated mid-game because this was going to happen. I remember a couple of games, I can't remember who it was against, maybe it was Leeds. Cole Palmer actively tried to break out of that trend and he tried to make these little 1-2s, like he'd make a short pass to a winger and then he'd run on, but the winger would just pass it straight back because that's what he'd been instructed to do. And I don't expect Xabi Alonso to play the same way at all. Like, really, really, really don't expect him to play this way. I expect Xabi Alonso to find the best way to get the best out of the players that we've got and their attributes, right? And like I say, with João Pedro, the only credit that Liam Rosinia can get is the fact that he found a way to really unlock João Pedro. Bearing in mind, Maresca, he was awful under Maresca. Like, you got to think, when João Pedro came in at the Club World Cup, there'd been very little coaching going on, and it was very much, I'm just going to put you on, play your best game, link up with people, see what happens. So at the beginning, João Pedro was absolutely great, and then he dropped off the face of the earth for months, absolutely ages. I think he went like nearly 10 games without scoring or something. It was absolutely crazy, and all of a sudden, João Pedro looked like a really bad buy. But then Liam Rosinia came in, and although, like I say, this isn't saying Liam Rosinia was good at all, because obviously we were absolutely terrible, but what he did do, which should be a blueprint to someone like Xabi Alonso coming in, was play João Pedro in a way that suits his skill set, not just, this is my formation, this is my system. Enzo Maresca was very much like, you do this in this phase, you do this in this phase, when the ball goes to this person, you need to be covering there. It was all about instruction, and that really worked for a couple of players, the likes of Marc Cucurella and Enzo Fernandez, to an extent Malagusto as well, although his output wasn't amazing. These kind of players really benefited from this really rigid tactical level of instruction. Pedro Neto was one as well. But we have a lot of players that play best when they're free. Cole Palmer came out and talked about how he liked playing under Liam Rosinia because he gave them freedom. And one of the really interesting things about Xabi Alonso is he is a half-structured guy. He likes to have like I say, a basic foundation of where people need to be in certain situations, but he also wants his players to read the game. He wants Cole Palmer to do what he was doing. I think it was Leeds, but again in that game where, okay, I generally want you to do this, but if an opportunity comes for you to make a 1-2 with someone and then bomb on, do it, because your instinct is just as important as my tactics. So this is something I'm really excited about with Xabi Alonso, and the more I think about it, the more I think that the question of back three or back four probably doesn't even really make that much sense, because we've set up a team that is very capable of playing both in different phases of the game. We're not going to buy enough players to completely restructure our team into a back three team the same way that Xabi Alonso did with Leverkusen, right? Because we're probably not going to buy that many players this season, but we have already shown that we've got the centre-backs capable of doing it. We've got some players that can play at wing-back, but not necessarily all the time. I'm just starting to think we're going to see a really fluid, interesting attacking Chelsea from Xabi Alonso, the likes of which we haven't seen in a little while. So guys, that's it. I'm going to start wrapping up the video. This has been a bit of a rambly one, but I'd love to know what you think about this in the comments. The basics of it is maybe 4 at the back is how we start, but maybe 3 at the back is how we attack. Maybe it's the other way around. I don't know. But like I say, the more I think about this kind of really black or white question of what formation is Xabi Alonso going to play, actually, we've seen it in the blueprint over the last few seasons that different managers have got success out of this team by starting them in one formation and defending in one formation, but attacking in another. And like I say, Pochettino for us was the progenitor of that, with putting Marc Cucurella in midfield, and that box midfield was so good. So let me know what you think. Is this all just rambly waffle? Like, you know that meme about Charlie from Always Sunny in Philadelphia where he's got the ball and he's like, it's like, I feel like that. Do you know what I mean? Because we're barely seeing any signings come in yet. We're not seeing loads of links. It's really difficult to kind of like predict how we're going to look, isn't it, at the end of the day? But that actually should be an exciting thing. And ultimately, that's really good for us as a team as well, because what isn't happening now is other teams aren't able to look at us right now and be like, right, this is how they're going to play. This is what we need to set up for next season. Xabi Alonso doesn't start work until July the 1st. Some insight may be given from some of the signings that we make, but at the end of the day, until pre-season, we're not really going to have an idea of what's going on. And probably even after that as well, because for Xabi Alonso, with his first time at Chelsea, pre-season is going to be the opportunity to take a look at players as well, isn't it? The likes of Nicholas Jackson, Emmanuel Omega, Liam Delap. Like, a lot of our striking situation needs looking at, because we've got 5 strikers on the books right now. So guys, I'm going to wrap it up there, but thanks very much for sticking around until the end of the video if you did, and I'll catch up with you all very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.